Okay. That melody that starts A Criminal Mind, I was still living in my parents' basement actually when I came up with that melody. And I kept coming back to it for a couple of weeks. I was just, this front part of the song, I kept playing it. Couldn't find any lyrics that fit with it, that felt authentic to what that melody was kind of inferring. And this is long before the chorus had arrived in my mind, even the melodic part of the chorus. And a couple of weeks later, it was in the summer, it would be in the summer of 1983. Because a couple of weeks later, I went to the Canadian National Exhibition. And this is where some of the legend of the song kind of begins to kind of take off, where people got the story a little bit wrong, but I'll clarify it now. There was, in the automotive building, there was a display put on by the Canadian government of the Canadian penal system. And they had a room about half the size of the one we're in right now, where they had an actual jail cell that they had transported from Kingston Penitentiary to the X. And I was a big lover of going to the X every year since I was a kid, and no one was looking at this display. It was just people were walking by and going, oh, that's creepy, you know, and so of course that made me extremely drawn to it. So I went over and I met the guy that was the curator. He was a retired prison guard. And over the course of the next half hour, I went and sat in this jail cell. He shut the door, locked it, and I just sat on the cot type bed that they had. And there was actually a bed dummy in there that was made out of paper mache, the kind that an actual prisoner had made up in an attempted escape. And it, you know, it was very crudely done. It was made out of newspaper and stuff. He had eyes painted on it and a face, and just so that it looked like it was under a blanket and the guards might pass by the door as he was pulling off the Great Escape. But just sitting in there alone, and although the X was going on around me, I just got the feeling, or tried to project the idea or drink in the idea of what it would be like to have to spend your days in a place like that. And the guard felt like we kept chatting, you know, just loosely chatting, and I said, well, how long, you worked there for over 25 years? He said, yeah. He says, some of my best friends were guys who were in for murder. And he said, they're actually the easiest to get along because they've got it out of their system. I said, well, who are the worst? He said, well, sometimes armed robbers are upset. So we're discussing this, kind of a light but heavy discussion. And then he said the word recidivist. And a recidivist is someone who habitually comes back to jail, can't seem to live a life outside of the confines of a penitentiary. And every time they come back in, there's no real remorse. They just feel like, oh, what I did wrong was I got caught, and I know what I have to do next time. So I love the idea of this person pleading their case in a courtroom and then finally copping to the fact that they really are just as dark and as bad, as they use in the song, as people have believed for all these years. Instead of turning around and saying, I was framed, I was innocent, he has a moment of clarity where he decides to tell the truth about himself. When I went home, suddenly the next morning, it's one of these things that within 20 minutes, the lyrics just poured out. And the chorus of the song came out. It flowed from this melody. Just suddenly went, a criminal mind is all I've ever had. Ask one who's known me if I'm really so bad. And the pause was just to say, I am. So that's the birth of that song. And what was really brilliant about Columbia Records was they had the foresight. The president there, Bernie DiMatteo, realized when his two teenage sons wouldn't stop playing the song, this is long before the record came out, he said, you have to make a video for this. it can't be too dark or it won't get played on television. So I had the idea of incorporating animation into it and turning myself into a cartoon character, especially on the I Am moment, which is the darkest moment of the song. But to suddenly have the grinning I Am turn into a cartoon, I think it suddenly made it commercially viable. So the song could be listened to by anyone, and once they saw that and saw the imagery that went with it. And I think over the years I've come to believe that everyone has this dark side in them, no matter how much of it has made it out into the world. And the potential is always there, and I think the song taps into that. And the admission that's in the guy's soul is there. I guess the other things I'd mention is we recorded this, of course, part of the Strange Animal album at Tittenhurst Park. So Ringo Starr was living in, that was his home at the time. It's where John made Imagine, John Lennon made Imagine. So Ringo heard this song being played in his house for a few months. And I wonder what he thought of it, because I remember him always mentioning Cosmetics as being a favorite. But this dark piece, and Tony Levin and Jerry Marotta and David Rhodes on guitar for this one, a little bit of Chris Jarrett. And producer David Tickle, he just got it. He really understood how to bring out the emotion of it. And we mixed it at Trident Studios in London, England. And it was the most advanced mixing place I'd ever been in at that point. And when we finished it, and then months later when we finished the video, I was just proud of it before it ever came out. I just thought, this is a good piece. And I mean, the song has changed my life twice. I went from my parents' basement to a #1 song. You get to live elsewhere. And then years later when I joined Styx, as I've mentioned, it's the first song we ever played together, the first time we got together. And since then it's been a Styx song as well. So that's a little bit of the story behind A Criminal Mind. David Tickle, the producer, he loved this song among the demos that I had, and he said, I just think that title, Strange Animal, is fantastic, and I agreed. I thought, well, that's great. Impossible for me to hear the opening of this song. Yeah, impossible. Not to picture me myself on top of a Mayan pyramid, in Teotihuacan, Mexico, the sun coming up, and a helicopter suddenly emerging and coming up over the horizon,